In this edition of Southern Newsweek, we find out what road improvements are being made to make it easier accessing Queenstown Airport. Name and Shame, the new campaign designed to combat drink driving. And for government eyes only, Dunedin Hospital's redevelopment options are finalised but aren't being made public just yet. Kia ora, I'm Callum Proctor. Visitors to Queenstown Airport should experience fewer traffic snarl-ups once $4.6 million of roading improvements are completed. The airport's new 2-minute public drop-off zone is set to keep traffic moving, along with the park and ride facility, which has recently opened. And further improvements are just around the corner. Here's Mina Amso with this report.
There has been 18 months of noise and traffic disruption at Queenstown Airport, but the new look is taking shape. Queenstown Airport Corporation CEO Colin Keel says the changes are designed to get traffic moving along more quickly.
And what that really does over this last 12 months is just take our car parking and our traffic flow to a completely different space than it was this time last year.
He says the number of car parks has been increased substantially in the last year.
When you think about the last 12 months, because that's really where the growth has occurred. So we started, if you include our staff car parking, at around 500 spaces. We've increased that by over 400, so almost 420 spaces. That's a pretty substantial increase in just a 12-month period.
So what has changed? A new free 2-minute public drop-off zone has been reintroduced at the airport terminal. The free 20-minute public pick-up and drop-off parking area remains, and a new tap-and-go technology which makes it easier for travellers to pay by credit and debit cards has been introduced. Keel says the road widening and a new roundabout at the airport will reduce the number of vehicles on the airport's ring road by 40%. The coach park has been moved outside the terminal, and a newly opened park and ride service area behind Mata 10 on Brooks Road will increase from 150 parks to 300 by the end of the year. In addition to the work at the airport, improvements have been made to the nearby Queenstown's traffic at the BP roundabout. The New Zealand Transport Agency project manager Phil Dorset says the extra added lane is helping speed up traffic flows.
And we've also put a lengthened the approach lane coming from the BP roundabout, and people are able to get onto the roundabout quicker and also leave it. And there are 2 circulating lanes around most of the roundabout now.
And there are more major traffic improvements in the pipeline, although the agency's Southern Region Manager Ian Duncan isn't willing to give details yet.
We're working with a number of partners in a governance group to come up with an overall transport system that is fit for purpose going forwards within Queenstown, and it will be a multimodal solution.
He says the agency is focusing on completing the Kawaro Bridge, Stage 2 of the Eastern Access Hawthorne Drive project, and the State Highway 6 Tucker Beach Road exit. Mina Amso, The South Today.
1 person died and 10 others were injured following a crash near Roxburgh. The crash involved a small tourist bus and a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Emergency services, including 2 rescue helicopters and 2 ambulances, rushed to the scene on State Highway 8. Senior Sergeant Ian Kerisk confirmed the fatality.
We have multiple injuries. At this point we believe we have 1 person deceased. So obviously you can see it's a busy time for us. All our services are here. Our biggest issue at the moment is making sure everybody's safe, getting the injured away, looking after the person that's died. So that's about all I can tell you at the moment.
What kind of bus and transport?
It's a passenger bus, is all I can say at the moment.
A St John spokesman says 2 people with serious injuries and 1 with moderate injuries were taken to Dunedin Hospital by helicopter. 7 others who sustained minor injuries were sent to Roxburgh's Medical Centre. State Highway 8 near Roxburgh was shut while emergency services worked at the scene. Convicted drink drivers can expect to see their name, age and alcohol levels on the front page of Queenstown's Mountain Scene newspaper. The paper's begun a campaign to highlight the escalating drink driving issues in the resort town.
Mountain Scene editor David Williams has no regrets about running a front page story this morning, naming and shaming convicted drink drivers in the resort town.
It is quite a forthright campaign But it's actually a crime and it puts people's lives at risk, so we don't apologise for that.
The 100 names placed on the front page are of people convicted of drink driving this year in the Queenstown District Court. Williams hopes having people's identity made so public it will make people think twice before drinking and driving.
It's about changing attitudes, and it's a fairly intangible thing that's hard to measure. But our idea is that if we can change one person's view, if they put their keys in their car and they go, hang on, we're going to be on the front page next week, and it makes them take a taxi home, then that's a win for us.
The campaign has attracted criticism, Jane saying, for instance, "Are you absolutely kidding me? What about children mountain scene? Yeah, brilliant idea, let's shame people into changing behaviour, because that's worked the world over."
Well, I think that it's more important for people who have children that they set an example for their children. And so naming and shaming isn't a bullying thing. We're not doing it so that people's children who are at school know that their parents have been drink drivers and that they're bullied. That's not the intention at all. It's saying that there's a very low tolerance of this in the community and we won't accept it anymore.
The article says drink driving convictions have risen in the resort town by 23% in 4 years, while national figures show a fall of 34%. The campaign will run till the end of the year. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Rocks are being used to symbolise peace in Timaru. About 420 rocks were placed at Caroline Bay recently to mark 30 years since New Zealand became nuclear free.
On June the 8th, 1987, the New Zealand Nuclear Free Zone, Disarmament and Control Act was passed, and this display is a way of showing thanks to those who made it happen. The painted rocks, arranged in a peace symbol, will be photographed and sent to Cape Jews of Christchurch. Last week, Jews travelled to the United Nations in New York, helping to negotiate a treaty to eradicate nuclear weapons. Organiser Rosalind Forth says the event attracted around 30 people to the bay to distribute the rocks and reflect on the significance of the event. The rocks are painted by members of Timaru Rocks, a Facebook page with more than 2,500 members who paint rocks and hide them around the district for others to find. Rachel Comer, The South Today.
The Southern Partnership Group has finalised preferred options for the redevelopment of Dunedin Hospital. However, the information within the report's only available to the government. That sparked Official Information Act's requests.
The future of Dunedin's public hospital is now in the hands of ministry officials in Wellington. At its monthly meeting this week, the Southern Partnership Group signed off the indicative business case for the redevelopment of Dunedin's hospital services. It clears the way for it to be reviewed by the Capital Investment Committee next month before it goes to Cabinet in August. Speaking on the steps of Parliament this afternoon, Opposition Health spokesperson David Clark is upset the report will be viewed in Wellington before it's seen in Dunedin.
I think it's terrible that this report is going to Wellington before local people can see it. Locals have been kept out of this process and kept in the dark for too long. We need a commitment to a full rebuild, and we need a time frame, and we need the government to be getting on with it this year.
The Dunedin City Council has also been vigorously lobbying for a central city rebuild. City Councillor David Benson Pope says the SOS campaign team has lodged an Official Information Act request to see what the report contains. Benson Pope says the DCC's campaign team has received 30,000 messages of support from Otago residents. He understands the bells may be tolling for the campaign, but says the team will be campaigning again at the Meridian Mall from noon this Saturday. Southern Partnership Group Chair Andrew Blair says the Partnership Group has already begun preparing for the next stage of the process, a detailed business case, to flesh out the preferred option, ready for the detailed design and construction phases of the project. David Clark says the rebuild must happen in the centre of Dunedin.
Look, there is every reason to want a central city rebuild to attract the best possible staff from overseas who can walk from their research facilities, their operating theatres to their teaching classes. And if we don't get that central city rebuild, things will be grim. I'm worried that the public is being kept in the dark because the right options are not being considered. We need answers now, and we need to know that there will be a full central city rebuild and that it will start this year.
Deputy Leader of the House of Parliament, Michael Woodhouse, was approached for comment by the South Today, but was unable to respond in time due to being on ministerial business in Canada. Daryl Baser, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, an angry Otago mum calls on the government to do more for the prevention of youth suicide. And it's a new lease on life for the yellow-eyed penguin that's been recouping on the Otago Peninsula. Welcome back. A mother who lost her Dunedin son to suicide says a government-led draft suicide prevention strategy is spineless. Patrice Harricks of Oamaru was spurred to work in mental health as a community worker after her son Brad Anderson committed suicide at age 25 in 2010.
Walking into the Ministry of Health office in Dunedin recently, Oamaru mother Patrice Harricks delivers a submission to the Ministry of Health's draft suicide prevention strategy. She says her own experiences led her to take this path.
My son died nearly 7 years ago by suicide. He was assessed by emergency psych services and turned away, and 2 days later he was dead. I have seen too many people and heard too many similar stories about people being sent away and then taking their own lives.
She's adamant the government can learn from her son's death and wants to prevent other families going through what she has experienced.
I feel so strongly about the government and the fact that they are not acknowledging that we have a serious problem here. We have one of the highest rates of suicide in the world, and the government should be ashamed of that.
The coroner's report says her son Brad Anderson received suboptimal care, but Harricks blames underfunding and not mental health staff.
I think they really need to put a good strategy in place that has spine, and they just need to really acknowledge that there's a problem and put the resources into it and put their money where their mouth is.
She says her son's death motivates her to work in the mental health field, but she feels hamstrung by underfunding. Her delivery of the PSA's proposal to government is aligned with the YesWeCare.nz campaign. Both organisations are running free health funding crisis forums on July the 1st around the country, including events in Christchurch, Dunedin and Invercargill. Daryl Baser, the South Today.
A yellow-eyed penguin found sick and underweight in the Catlins has been returned to the wild after recovering in Penguin Place on Otago Peninsula. The Department of Conservation was alerted to the penguin by members of the public at the end of May.
This hoi-ho, or yellow-eyed penguin, was returned to the southern coast near where it was rescued from in May. When it was found last month, it was underweight and was reportedly close to death. However, after a little encouragement, the solid-looking aquatic bird was back in its natural environment. University of Otago PhD student Mel Young was one of the team returning the bird to its nesting home this week. Young says the penguin was close to death when found and was severely underweight at just 3 kilograms. It was dehydrated and still molting. The bird was a healthy 6 kilograms when returned to the wild South Otago coast. The Department of Conservation is thankful to the members of the public who found the bird and let them know. Dunedin's Yellow-Eyed Penguin Trust and Penguin Palace on the Otago Peninsula helped with the bird's recuperation. Daryl Baser, the South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, locals and tourists alike get amongst the action as the curtain came down on Queenstown's Winter Festival. And Oamaru's about to get scary, why part of the town's historic waterfront's being transformed into a horror show. Welcome back. It was 4 action-packed days of celebrations at the Queenstown Winter Festival. Hundreds of locals and visitors flocked to the resort town to enjoy the festivities. And the last day of activities began in the mountains at dawn and ended in downtown Queenstown beneath a crisp, starry night sky. Mina Amso was there.
The final day of the Queenstown Winterfest began at dawn at Coronet Peak with the Macpac Skin to Summit and ended with the Auckland Airport Carnival taking over downtown Queenstown. Pop-up restaurants and bars and live entertainment kept crowds busy and happy on a chilly Sunday evening. Fireworks lit up the southern sky on Friday to add colour to the celebrations. 250 people, including families and community organisations, paraded around the streets of Queenstown on dusk as part of the community walking parade. Joining the parade was the Wasamba group from Western Australia. The 44-member group ranged in age between 8 and 87 years. Headlining the Festival Hub main stage was Wellington's Phoenix Foundation and Dunedin's Tahu and the Takahas. Details on next year's Queenstown Winter Festival will be released later this week. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Turning the tourist section of Oamaru into a horror show has logistical challenges for South Canterbury farmer Rory Foley. Foley's company Fair NZ is turning part of the historic waterfront area into a Victorian-themed horror experience. Realising this vision's come with some challenges.
We've had to look at road closures. Right now we're on the 3rd floor of the Lone and Merc, so we have a lot of materials that we have to bring up 3 flights of stairs. And just dealing with the public to make sure that it's screened off enough so Joe Public, who doesn't want to see horror, doesn't look down the end of the street, and enough for our customers to be rewarded with a full immersion experience, so they are like literally stepping back into Victorian London times.
The horror will cover parts of Tyne and Harbour Streets, then run to the 3rd floor of Oamaru's Lone and Merc building. The event will raise funds for the Whitestone Civic Trust, which restores and maintains historic buildings in the area. Harbour Street's Oasis Antiques owner Greg Waite says the event's fundraising goal is fantastic. Wellington-based organisation Education New Zealand has held an international education event in Dunedin. Its roadshow following on from an international student wellbeing strategy recently launched in the South. CEO Grant McPherson says New Zealand's success in the international student industry is one of our best kept secrets.
Education New Zealand was at Dunedin's Public Art Gallery yesterday as part of a nationwide education roadshow. The organisation monitors international education providers and its focus is on enhancing New Zealand's reputation as a safe, welcoming study destination. Chief Executive Grant McPherson says international education is New Zealand's 4th largest income earner and is responsible for 32,000 jobs.
But more importantly, it's that sharing of experience, learning of other cultures, the global connectedness I talked about earlier. These are massive value elements for New Zealand, and a lot of people don't know that. So we're keen to get that message across.
The sector has experienced double-digit growth year on year for nearly a decade. McPherson says with the Otago Polytechnic and the University of Otago, Dunedin is well positioned to offer much to international students.
As a city, it's an education city, so strong and high quality providers that are here, right from sort of English language schools, primary and secondary schools, the ITP, the Institute of Technology and Polytechnic.
The organisation's regional partner program with Dunedin also aims to connect the industry with local authorities and institutions. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
Craft beer brewers from around the country have been in Invercargill for the Southern Malt Collective Conference. The two-day event saw the brewers sharing tips and tricks for improving their skill sets and also trying new flavours. Here's Ruby Spink.
27 of New Zealand's best and brightest brewers were at the Southern Malt Collective in Invercargill today and yesterday to trade tips for creating a better brew. Invercargill Brewery head brewer and event organiser Steve Nelly says it's a unique opportunity for those in the industry.
And the whole idea is to get together and talk beer, talk techniques and educate. We did sensory evaluation with the University of Otago and they spiked some beers so we get to taste what faults taste like. And very educational. For brewers, this is really the only event I know of in New Zealand where we get together and collaborate basically.
This is the conference's 4th year. Nelly says it's grown a lot since the first one-day event, when only 7 brewers attended. The first day focused on workshops, with the second day a chance to make back-to-back brews emphasising certain ingredients. Nelly says this allowed smaller operators to work alongside other more established beer makers.
Normally when brewers get together, it's at beer festivals. Beer festivals are about the people, and it's not about us. So it's the opportunity to kind of be together and network. I've learnt so much these last couple of days, and it's good to catch up with my colleagues.
Steve Nelly says he can see the event growing even bigger from here, bringing in more brewers and opportunities to learn. I'm Ruby Spink for The South Today.
And that's it for Southern Newsweek this week. Get online and check us out on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, or you can keep up with Southern News via our website, channel39.co.nz. I'm Callum Proctor. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.